Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston. I'm the host, and I'm the national spokesperson for Endow American Network Foundation, and also the theory of social charity, which is a theory of love. We believe that you can create a phenomenal endowment for yourself using the best devices that Congress can give us in the form of these charitable planning tools. They're just amazing. You can create a wonderful endowment for yourself, and then at some point in the future, when you're not here any longer, you can pass that endowment on to the nonprofit organization that you think does the work that you want to be done into the future, and you can create a legacy that way. So you're helping yourself, you're loving yourself, and you're loving the community as well. And we call that the theory of social charity, where 664, that section of the tax code that's as powerful as any other section, in fact, more powerful than most, that equals E squared, where E is endowment, and we're squaring the endowment. We're going to make an endowment for yourself, and then you can make an endowment for the future. And you don't have to be ultra rich to do this. You can do this with any type of property that you have. If you're going to have a capital gain and you want to avoid capital gain, you want to get a tax deduction, you want to get income, all those things can be done using the Section 664 and social charity sections of the tax code. We believe in philanthropy. We believe that you can have the greatest most fabulous, peaceful world if people will be philanthropic. It's loving each other. And there are a lot of problems that need to be solved. Some of the problems are big problems, like we interviewed a gentleman, Mr. Goodman, that was with the Hunger Project, which is a worldwide issue. It's something that covers the globe, curing or helping people no longer be hungry, and showing them how to use agrarian tools so they can grow their own food. That's a big project. And then there are smaller projects that are more local. And my guest today is Yolanda Berkowitz. And Yolanda is someone who has founded an organization that's local. It's called Friends of Miami Animals. And Yolanda joins us now. Good morning. How are you, Yolanda?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on. I'm delighted to be here representing Friends of Miami Animals Foundation. Thank you for including us.
So the problem, as I see it, is that there are a lot of animals that are born not of their. It's not their fault they're born. They're born out in the world, and there needs to be a way to deal with that in pretty large numbers, as I see it in the Miami area. Your objective is to help solve the problem of these uncared for animals and get them cared for, and also to prevent it from happening. Tell us how you do that. How do you go about making that happen in a community like Miami?
Thank you. It's, I learned early on, and I worked in the child advocacy field for a long time. So I understand the impact that one person can have if you're committed to a mission and a cause. And I've been able to apply a lot of the same principles for homeless and at-risk pets in Miami-Dade County. And interestingly, like in so many things in the world we live in, the inequity that causes families to have to give their pets away, or the lack of access to vet care, or the cost of vet care, the lack of community resources. Lovely family has a dog, the dog gets pregnant, they now have 5 or 10 puppies. Mm-hmm. And then what do you do? And then it's an extraordinary burden on the family. And then they're giving dogs away, or they're selling dogs, which is illegal unless you're licensed. Mm-hmm. Or some people just release them on the street. And, I'm finding that for us, our county shelter, our municipal shelter, Miami-Dade Animal Services, has always been sort of the cornerstone of the work. Because as a municipal agency, I think we have an obligation, taxpayer dollars, to be good stewards of those dollars.
Yes.
And to deploy them.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, and to deploy them for county residents who can't afford a $500 sterilization bill, or we have so many vet deserts in Miami-Dade County, and FOMA has always focused on sort of the root causes of these things: lack of access to vet care, lack of spay and neuter and vaccination services, lack of pet retention services, lack of support for our shelter, frankly. And, you talk about philanthropy and you talk about building for the future. I believe so strongly that in order to really affect change, you have to work on sort of an institutional level. You have to work on policies and procedures and programs that will survive you and me. And so we are very lucky. We're a small nonprofit. We are small but mighty. We do a lot of work in Miami-Dade County. And, we find that in working with communities, unhoused individuals who also, animals are terrific for individuals who are living on the streets, who have mental health issues or other emotionally challenging issues. The human animal bond is very real, and we know the benefits of that. And, I've always believed, again, through the Guardian Ad Litem program and kids in foster care, that, you can really elevate the conversation. You can really give value to these things that are sort of systemic. I had a conversation with someone the other day about a community down in Homestead in sort of our farming area. It's housing for formerly unhoused individuals, homeless individuals. And I think there are 60 or 70 dogs and 11 cats and I don't know how many mice or snakes, but they have pets. And, many of their leases depend on their pets being vaccinated. And they don't have cars, they can't drive. Many are emotional support animals. And so you don't want to take their animals away. So we're figuring out a way to bring the services to them and to make them partners in caring for their animals so that they have a sense of responsibility. And interestingly, in speaking with some of the team down there, the feeling that I got was that in many ways, administrators felt that people living in housing communities for formerly homeless individuals perhaps shouldn't have animals. And, that's an old way of thinking about things. I think that we need to think about how we elevate the conversation for everyone. Spay neuter is key. Wellness services are key. So, building today for the future, setting sort of the tone. What my husband so graciously and generously is hosting an event for me in a few weeks. It's a fundraiser for the foundation. And, what I've said to him is, it's great that people are donating, but I really want people in the room. I really want people to see and understand the impact that you can have. So, we are.
It's really important for the volunteer aspect of it. And also, you do two things, actually. One is you try and educate and you try and provide for the support of animals that are out there. And then you also have a foster program where, is that like take home this cat and see if you like it? I mean, I mean, there are foster to adopt programs. I think one of the keys in public sheltering, and our county shelter typically takes in 30,000 animals a year. And they've historically done a really terrific job with it. I think that as we look to animal welfare in the future, and there's a tremendous shortage of vets and vet techs, that's a real problem. There's obviously a national staffing shortage. A lot of the big, Banfield and VCA, they're buying small vet clinics and, prices are going up and they're taking vets and giving them all sorts of incentives to work with the big players. And so that's limiting vet care even more. And I think is that the vet desert that you talk about? Yeah, vet deserts is where there are no vets available in, several mile radius. So that if you're living in Opelika has some, but if you're living in Liberty City, if you're living in other communities, you are, 45 minutes away from a vet. And then sterilization is, $500 or $400. But I think that, what you're talking about, engaging the community, foster-based sheltering, I think, is one of the keys that we should be looking at. I think that we should look at developing a strong foster network, because dogs in a shelter, after too long, they start to become stir crazy. They need to be socialized. They need to be out in the world. And, you're talking about engaging people today and continuing to engage people in the future. Right. And I find that when you give people tools and you give them information, many people want to help. They just need a path to what they can do. So foster-based sheltering, I think, is really a key. Pet retention, foster-based. How does that work? So you give the animal to foster parents and they may keep it or they may not, or how does that work?
So ideally, and yes, foster to adopt is great. You're interested in an animal, you really like the animal, you're not sure, you can foster for a while, and then if you decide to keep the animal. Right. But also, it also is a safe haven for animals, so that they're not living in a shelter day after day, week after week, month after month.
So that
they learn to be in a home, so that they learn to go on leash walks, so that they learn to be good canine citizens. And even if it's just a short time, it not only helps an animal, it makes room in the shelter for other animals that may need a safe haven. And it also gives foster parents and shelters the opportunity to learn about an animal. Is the animal reactive on a leash? Is the animal scared of thunder? Is the animal, all sorts of things. And I think, as we build community, as we engage more people in our community, I think we're going to see a future in sheltering that's going to look a little bit differently, because we're looking at equity in care, making care accessible for pet families, providing adopter support, so that if you adopt a 70-pound dog from the shelter or a 50-pound dog from the shelter, and it's big dogs that have the hardest time getting adopted, obviously, that there may be some... that they eat the most, they're bigger. Housing discrimination is very real, not just for people, but for animals. But, you give support to the adopter. So I know that when and Friends of Miami Animals Foundation does not rescue animals. We don't take animals into our care. We don't foster them. We don't adopt. We don't do any of that. What we do is we do foster support. So if a dog goes to a foster program and we've kind of got an eye on the dog for some reason, we become involved. I personally, or through some of our partners, we've provided medical care for a dog that Animal Services put into foster care, and they couldn't treat an ear infection that just wasn't going away, because in a shelter environment, you're limited what you can do with medicine. So through our pet retention work, through our medical grants that we give to vet clinics, this foster was able to get this dog treated privately at a vet at a reasonable cost with a very small investment. The dog's ears got better. We included her in an event that we do every month. We have a partnership with the Underline, which is a 10-mile linear park in Miami. And
it's a beautiful park.
It's the first Saturday of the month. It's called Pause at the Underline, promoting animal welfare Saturdays. And because we were familiar with this foster and this dog, who was one of 29 confiscated dogs back in the summer, I invited her to come to Pause at the Underline, and lo and behold, someone fell in love with her dog and adopted the dog. So I think collaborating, bringing resources to other people doing good work in the community. We received a grant. They're called Good Packs, and they are for unhoused individuals. It's a backpack, and it has toiletries, a t-shirt, a water bottle, and some other personal items, and also pup packs, which includes a bag of treats, a can of dog food, a portable water bowl, and a leash. So a friend of mine who actually feeds unhoused individuals once a week, we've been able to give her the backpacks and give her the pup packs. And when she has an unhoused individual that has a pet, she makes sure that she gives them one of each, and she gives them our card, and she finds out, do you need vaccines? Do you need sterilization? Because again, what we're doing, you're in your conversation about philanthropy, we're elevating the conversation for everyone. You're
giving them an opportunity to do something that's really nice to do and very comfortable to do once you get into it. But tell me something about when you have if you have a vet desert, as you refer to it, are you also providing services on wheels? Is that part of something that you're working on?
So several years ago, we're just finished year 2.5. We donated a mobile vet clinic and $500,000 for the first year of free wellness services to owned pets in Miami-Dade County. Again, it's for owned pets because we're looking at keeping pets with their families and out of shelters.
Right.
So we did the first year of operation. I then went to the county commission and said, here's the budget that you gave me. We're going to give you the first year for $500,000. Will you commit to years 2 and 3 so that we know that we have a program that's going to be around for a while? So the Wildmobile goes to these locations where there are no vets or very limited vets, and they're typically there for 3 months at a time. And pet owners in Miami-Dade can take their animal. They can do a wellness check. They do vaccination, microchipping, heartworm testing, all sorts of wellness services, and then they can get a referral if the pet needs something else. And so we're learning, are pets not sterilized? Do pet owners want to sterilize their pets? How do we provide those services to them? So we try to understand what the needs are in the community. Sort of, the old adage,
Well, you're
meet
personal.
people where they are.
Right, you're right down there, yeah, with me meeting with
Yeah.
people and discussing it on a very, very basic level where it actually means something. It's
Yes.
easy to talk about things, but it's much more difficult to get it done.
Much more difficult to deliver.
You walk the talk, which is
Yeah.
and we appreciate that.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. We just did a great project through one of our partners. We received a truckload of pet food, dog and cat food, about 25,000 pounds. And so what I did was I sought out, and I say I because I do the day-to-day. I run the day-to-day operations. I have two amazing board members. We're a tiny board, but we do really good work. But I got in touch with Farm Share and Feeding South Florida, which are two programs that provide groceries and food to families in Miami-Dade County.
Yep.
So I contacted them and said, hey, I've got all this pet food. Do you have people with animals? And they said, oh my God, yes. We've given away 450,000 pounds of pet food in the last year. So it was great. We gave them 20 pallets of pet food. They made it available through their site. And the next step for me is to have them give a palm card or something to these pet families receiving this pet food. And then they can they can scan a QR code and they can fill out a questionnaire. Is your pet vaccinated? Is your pet sterilized? Do you need assistance? So I think, for me and for us, I think it's getting in the field, understanding where people are and what they need. And I'm sure that you know this from the work that you do. Philanthropy and elevating others really feeds us as individuals and gives us a sense of meaning and a sense of belonging. And I just find that people are really motivated and really jazzed when they feel that they're making an impact, when they feel that what they're doing is touching others. And, I think through the pandemic, we really found how important our connections are with each other.
Yes, and especially with pets in general too. It's the big part of a lot of people's lives. They don't.
Yes, it is.
I had a friend that lost a dog, and it was brutal to them. It's your friend every day in the way that you expect them to be there, and then they're not there every day, and it's a different story. But I certainly commend you on the work that you're doing. My guest is Yolanda Berkowitz, and Yolanda is the founder of Friends of Miami Animals. And is this replicable? Are there other organizations that are following what you're doing in other cities? I mean, this is not a problem that just locally in Miami. I mean, this is a problem all over the country, all over the world. But I mean, is there a replication process of what you're doing, or how do you see succession or sustainability in what you're doing so that it can be carried on? Is that part of your overall strategy?
It is in some ways. Obviously, my focus is in Miami-Dade County. Our focus is in Miami-Dade County because this is our backyard. This is our community. This is where we have information and access and where we can make things happen. But we did a project in July called Operation 𝒐𝒐𝒕𝒆, which was intended to provide free spay and neuter vaccination services, focusing on bully breeds. I had a race car driver who was my spokesperson, hence the pit stop. It was intended for, pity mixes. And so we created all of this creative. We have, ads and we have videos and we have billboards. And so what we've been able to do with that is we've been able to share our creative collateral that we paid for with other communities that are doing Operation 𝒐𝒐𝒕𝒆 and well. And so they can duplicate that. At the end of the day, again, what I learned from the Guardian Ad Litem program is that one person really can make a difference. And, people want to replicate the work and they want to replicate the successes that we've had, but someone has to champion these things. Someone has to go to the mat. Someone has to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. Yep. And, to work closely with the municipal shelter, to work closely with county government is really key to success. Someone just contacted me today that there is a foundation that wants to make a wellness vehicle available to someone. And can we utilize another WOW-mobile? It's Wellness on Wheels, right. WOW. So I said, look, it's not something that we've considered because obviously it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund. You've got to staff it. But send me the information because maybe I can find a partner who can do it with us. Right. Someone who can deliver the day-to-day if they have funding and support. So it is, you can replicate it, but again, someone has to champion these things. Someone has to speak up.
Yeah, I agree. And you cannot rely on government is not the place for this. They can help, but this is something that the community has to do, and it has to do it based on the needs of the community and by people in the community helping each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing your work, frankly.
Thank you. Thank you. And, in the Guardian Ad Litem program, the CASA program, we used to always say the state makes a terrible parent. And no one does more for kids than volunteers. And I find my animal welfare colleagues and friends are some of the most empathetic, committed, kind, and loving people that I know. And I think it comes from a place of service. It comes from a place where they're putting themselves on the ground, looking at the hard things that we're all seeing in our community. And we have enjoyed for a very long time since we were founded, we've enjoyed an excellent working relationship with our county elected officials, with our mayor, with our county shelter. And I think that's made a difference for us. It's elevated our conversation and the work that we're doing. So, and it's, it doesn't have to be terrifying that you have to fund a mobile clinic and $500,000 a year. It doesn't have to be that. If you want to make
it can be small things too. The foster program, adopting and volunteering and other.
Volunteering is critical. Volunteering. It's everyone can do something. And, and the education piece is really important. We talked a little bit earlier about this housing community in South Dade where formerly unhoused individuals live. And for their perception to be that people of that socioeconomic level should not have pets is an educational piece. That's all that it is.
Right.
It's old world thinking. Only rich white people can have animals. I mean, I don't want to be flippant about it, but it's very old world thinking. And when we look at the value of the human animal bond, I know that there's a large study that unhoused individuals with pets, I don't know the number of the study, and somebody just gave me the information. I'm going to read it myself. They tested cortisol level for these people living on the streets who have mental health issues, who have substance abuse issues, people that are really struggling in their lives. Right. The individuals with pets had better cortisol levels than other people, and they maintain them with their animals. I personally worked with our former shelter director, contacted me a few years ago, and he's never asked me for anything for anyone. He called and he said, I would never do this, but there is a gentleman who's been living in his van with his dog. The van caught fire and the dog needs urgent care. And I personally do a ton of medical rescue. So I said, absolutely, send the dog to my vet. The dog didn't make it after lots of money that I spent on the dog. But this gentleman showed up to visit his dog every single day.
Wow.
This man whose van was burnt to the bond is so important. And so, that is so gratifying. And, I think that when you experience this connection that we have with other human beings and other sentient beings, and I'm talking about people now, when you experience that, when I go to my friend's feeding program and I talk to people that have dogs, I mean, they love their animals. They depend on their animals for companionship, for all sorts of things. And so, that connection always feeds my work. I feel enriched by it. I feel motivated by it. So, it's very exciting work. And
thank you for sharing with us today, Yolanda. Really, it's
my pleasure.
And it's a pleasure to meet you. One of the themes that we have always, discussed here on our, what we call the theory side of this, is that it's better for the people to be able to help government do what government does rather than the government try to help people do what they do. And that's what you're doing, basically. You're
smart.
You've given an adjunct to the governing body by doing something that you can do and governing can't do. And that's really important. Exactly. It's important in a lot of ways. So thank you very much for joining us on Route 6.
You're welcome.
The road to human kindness, and human kindness is pet kindness, and pet kindness is human kindness, and it's all related. It is all related. Please check out our website at fomapets.org, FOMAPETS.org, to learn more about us, and on social media. We try to share the work that we're doing. We try to share action steps for people, and
You're talking about that connection, and it's really been just a great experience for us connecting with the pet loving community. So we appreciate the platform and appreciate the work that you do and the focus that you put on philanthropy.
Thank you.
And good stewardship.
Thank you. Very important. And this, especially in this day and time, we need to change the world from where it is sometimes to a better place.
Exactly.
So, thank you, Yolanda. All right.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a good evening. It's a pleasure. It's not, what time is it? My office is all shut down. Thank you so much. We'll talk again. Let me know if I can help in anything. Thanks.
Will do.
You ever just want to tune out the world and relax? Then you've come to the right place. At 𝑹𝒐𝒖𝒕𝒆.org, we've got great music that will keep you entertained for hours and uplifting conversation that will make you feel good about yourself and the world. So come on in and take a load off. We won't judge here. 𝑹𝒐𝒖𝒕𝒆.org.
And that was a terrific interview with Yolanda Berkowitz. I talk about people working at their genius, and that's the top of the pyramid, the confidence pyramid. Having confidence over money, and then having confidence over your time and relationships, and getting spiritual, and then getting to the point where you can work at your genius and do something that you love to do 24 hours a day. And an individual can make themselves in that position by doing what is necessary to make themselves economically sound. A lot of people, when I explain to you what the theory of social charity is, it's kind of a little out there. 664 equals E squared, and then E is endowment. But really what all this boils down to is two basic principles, and one of them comes from President John Kennedy when he was inaugurated, and he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And shortly after that, in 1969, the Congress passed these pieces of legislation that allow you to do something good for yourself and good for the country. And the way this has evolved over time, it is now possible for you actually to do something good for your country because you have the power to do that as an individual. Just think about what Yolanda's doing in the community of Miami, that she's able to make the city, the county, a better place to live in for all that are in the county, because benefiting one benefits all. And so you have the right and privilege to do all of that and to make your life better by using the theory of social charity, which is that you can use your assets to make your life better in more effective ways and also do something for the country overall. So what we want to say is that you can get economic peace of mind and soul and do something very good for the country. This is what the theory of social charity is all about. Economic peace of mind and soul and doing something good for the country. So how do you get economic peace of mind and soul? And I think everybody out in this workplace, in any atmosphere where you've got people thinking about what their lives are all about, economic well-being is part of that. Their own economic peace of mind. And in many cases, it drives almost everything that we do. So economic peace of mind can be attained. Economic peace of mind and soul can be attained. And that's done by planning properly and avoiding hazards that face you, and you can reach that economic peace of mind. We know that there are certain hazards that everybody's exposed to, that you, no matter how wealthy you are, no matter what your status in life is, you have the ability or the jeopardy of being a victim of one of them. And those hazards are not include, but are not limited to dying too soon, losing your property by theft or destruction, getting sued by third parties, the cost of medical care and disability, and the issue of living too long. And when we're dealing with this part of our planning structure, when we deal with the planning for the peace of mind and soul, we really start with the premise that we want you to live a long time. And so if you can create the economic well-being to know that you are going to be able to be supported as you go forward in your life, whether it's through your work life, and then after your work life, that's what's very important for economic peace of mind. Knowing today that you can afford to live in the style that you want to live, or the style that you're living. A lot of people are living in a right now in an inflationary world, in a fairly not a highly taxed world, but will probably become a highly taxed world. And so it's much, much harder to have economic peace of mind. So using these devices, these social charity devices, it helps you maximize the use of your assets. This is Route 664, the road to human kindness. And we join you every week here on Community Newspapers. We'll see you again next week. Have a great week.